I'm glad you're all here. Thank you. I hope everybody's having a summer so far. Staying cool. We won't get cold. Yeah. It's been a pretty good summer. But
So far.
it's getting hotter. I heard Saturday and Sunday's supposed to be back up in the hundreds. And we're having an outside birthday party on Saturday morning. Yeah, close enough. Well, has everybody had a chance to review the minutes? And if there are no corrections, and the promotion to approve them?
As approved.
Thank you. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. And we will start with the financial report for the quarter ending June 30th. And I think Ms. Janina will be our star this evening.
Oh,
For the most part of the evening. Thank you, Janina.
thank you. And we'll start off with the, like she said, the third quarter report ending June 30th, 2014, and that's the one with the clock on it. You should really have this in your packet. Page 1 of your report is just a summary, so I'm going to begin technically with page 2. And you'll see on page 2, you'll find the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance for the nine-month period ending June 30th, 2014. This is 75% of the way through fiscal year 2014. Sales tax collections through the end of June totaled $3,166,045, or 77% of the annual budget, and 104.4% of the fiscal year-to-date budget. The total revenues through the end of June are over $3,171,000, and is almost $138,000 more than we anticipated for the first 9 months of this fiscal year. Operating and capital expenditures are within budget at $2,892,079, which is approximately 59% of the annual budget. Divisions are currently well within the budget. The arts line item has incurred all of its 2014 expenses this year, but has no other expenses planned through the end of the fiscal year. Capital expenditures in the operating fund are detailed on page 3. These include expenses for the park enhancements, library furnishings and enhancements, aerial murals, and refurbishments at 1100 West Parkway. Capital expenditures have totaled $184,596 this year to date. You will see in a few minutes when we discuss the budget for next year, the items we plan to finish this fiscal year and which ones will carry over past September 30th of this year. At the end of June, the operating fund balance is over $2.3 million. On page 4 of this document, you can see the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance for the capital projects fund. The operating funds have made transfers of $50,000 for our annual transfers for irrigation and incentives. Fiscal year to date, expenses total $80,745, which is detailed by each one of those areas on your page 5. This leaves a remaining balance in the capital projects fund for existing projects of $596,856. And you will see that we'll have an additional $417,000 in undesignated funds, which are available for future projects. You'll see that at the end of the budget document for next year. Page 6 of your report shows you the activity in the debt service fund. As of June, this fund had an ending fund balance of $665,000. These funds are available to pay the next interest and principal payment, which is due on September 15th this year. Page 7 details the debt service reserve fund. We're required to keep a bond reserve equal to the maximum annual debt service requirements, or currently that is $902,064. At the end of June, we had $910,896 in there, and funds in excess of our needed reserves will be transferred at year-end back to the EDC operating fund. If you have any questions on our report ending June 30th?
I do. What is the LTE total on page 5? What does LTE stand for?
That's our life today.
Oh, like this.
Yes, because our capital projects
Sometimes will span several years, and so we keep a life-to-date total on those.
Any other questions? Okay. At this time, we'll have a public hearing for fiscal year 2014-15 budget, which provides continued funding for parks and park facilities, library improvements, and economic development projects. That's set for you. And that's Ms. Janet. You're not tired of hearing me yet.
And this will be your packet with the old water system and the new water system in the same picture. And you'll see, each of you should receive a copy of this in your packet. On page 1, the fiscal year 2014 original budget, and you'll see that in the first numeric column, included expected sales tax collections and related interest earnings of $4,100,532, and total proposed expenditures last year for this current year of $4,938,641, which provide funding for park maintenance and improvements, library personnel and materials, economic development personnel and operating expenditures, debt service on outstanding bonds, and funding for capital expenditures. The original budget projected an ending fund balance of $1,253,308. Going into 2014, our sales tax collections had improved and continue to improve throughout the fiscal year. Currently, we expect to end the year with total revenues of $4,268,998. This is a 4.1% increase from our original budget estimates. On the expenditure side, we expect parks, library, and economic development to end the year within budget. In the other expenses, we do have an increase in rebates and incentives due to stronger economy. Just as sales tax collections increased over $170,000 from original budgeted expectations, businesses have earned over $35,000 more in incentives and rebates from our budgeted expectations. So staff is going to ask the board to consider, along with their adoption of the budget, to amend the current year budget to meet these contractual obligations. If you turn to page 2, and I'm sorry for later, I'll have to turn back to page 1, but on page 2, you'll see at the top of the page, we expect to complete most of the capital projects that were approved for 2014. We are asking to roll the remaining funds for planning consultants, park upgrades, security system upgrades. We want to combine that and do a whole system-wide solution to that. The additional art money and refurbishment of the building at West Parkway. Based on these projections, if you flip back to page 1, we expect to end fiscal year 2014 in that third numeric column with operating fund balance of $2,016,937, which is $763,629 greater than originally budgeted due to the increase in revenues. The 2015 budget, that will be in your far right-hand column on that page 1, includes expected sales tax collections and interest earnings of $4,444,038. The sales tax revenues were based on estimated collections through the end of this fiscal year, plus an additional 3% growth factor for next year, as well as additional revenues from anticipated development. Proposed expenditures total $5,495,565 and include funding for parks, library, economic development, debt service, and proposed capital. The parks budget provides for continued funding for parks personnel, full cost of the entire aquatic center this year, one parks field tech that is being transferred to the EDC from the general fund, as well as one addition of the 8 months of a special events coordinator. This also includes continued funding for irrigation projects, equipment replacement, utilities, and maintenance throughout the park facilities, which includes flower bed maintenance, mowing, and painting of park structures. The library budget provides continued funding for library personnel, library materials and supplies. Economic development budget includes continued funding for personnel, incentives, and public art. And if you flip back again to page 2 of the budget recommendations, we've discussed the items at the top of the page that the city manager requests to be carried forward. And at the bottom of the page, you'll see that those items that have been recommended for 2015 approval. The new capital funding recommendations for 2015 total $427,540, which includes $75,000 for South Euless Park upgrades, $95,000 for a bus and bus driver to help our citizens get to some of our great facilities.
Is it 95 or 80?
It's 95 total. There's 80,000 for the bus and 15,000 for the bus driver. We figured we needed one of those to go with it. Then we've also got $7,475 for multifunctional library document center for our patrons. $35,000 for computer hardware and software upgrades at the Parks Department and the library. And $215,065 to provide funds to rent space at the Dr. Pepper Star Center at the Parks of Texas Star for pro shop and concession sales, as well as space for additional recreation classes and programming. If the budget is approved as submitted, this fund would have an estimated ending fund balance of $965,410, which well exceeds the $500,000 reserve level that has been requested by the board as well as the city council. On page 3, you'll find the 2014 projected and 2015 proposed capital budget. As you can see, we expect to end the year, fiscal year 2014, with undesignated capital fund balance of $417,898, which differs just slightly from what I just told you at the June financial fiscal report due to projected interest earnings that we believe that we'll receive before year end. However, remember that the project budgets extend over the life of the projects. Therefore, any funds remaining in these projects at the end of the year will automatically roll forward into fiscal year 2015. The 2015 capital budget provides for $25,000 for continued park irrigation systems, as well as $25,000 for economic development incentives, all which would be funded by those transfers that we had in EDC operating fund. If the capital budget is approved, the capital fund would have an estimated ending fund balance of $419,898, which would be available for future capital projects even after fiscal year 2015. Again, this is a public hearing. If you've got any questions.
Anybody have any questions?
Ask a question.
Okay, Kurt?
Economic development, you've got $25,000 in incentive. How much did we spend last year?
Mr. Marsh, that 25,000 is getting transferred over to the capital fund, so we probably need to go back to the capital fund, which will show up on page 5 of the financial report as of June 30th that she gave previously. So if you'll go back to that June 30th financial report, the board decided a few years back to transfer $25,000 annually from the operating fund to the capital fund and accumulate that money so that you'll have it in case an opportunity presents itself. And so if you go over to page 5 of this document, the one with the clock on the front, it will show you the incentive project that actually was set up in 1999. That's DB 9901 incentives.
If we spent $50,000 in 2014, and that's what we budgeted, then why are we only budgeting $25,000?
The operating fund is only doing $25,000.
Didn't say where we're from. I said the incentives.
Yes, the incentive line item. The operating fund is doing a transfer to the capital fund each year of $25,000. And then when the board grants an incentive, you're taking it out of the capital fund. So the operating is simply a $25,000 transfer to the capital fund. And then the board is spending it out of the capital fund. So on page 5, the capital fund has, like today, total has spent $450,853 out of a budget of $500,853 and has a remaining balance that's carried over in the current year of $50,000, and then we're requesting another $25,000, and that's simply accumulating that in the capital fund in case the board gets an opportunity to incent a business that might want to come. But all that's simply doing is moving it from the operating fund to the capital fund to give you the flexibility to approve an incentive should you choose to do so.
Please understand, I'm not opposed to spending money for economic development. I'm for that 100%. I just don't know if that's enough. I haven't seen any economic development happening. I'm sure it has, but I haven't seen anything that's just been gigantically, that we'd help fund.
Remember that these funds can't go for just any economic development. These have to go for primary jobs, industrial.
That's not my issue, we don't, there's not enough money in the budget
You know,
to promote business, and that's what this is about.
Oh, and that's the point, I'm not trying to, I was responding when you said you hadn't seen any economic development. We have done incentives, sales tax incentives, but that's not what this is for. If y'all want to put additional funds in here, we have no objection to it whatsoever. In fact, there's $400 and something thousand. What's the number on the,
Yeah, the board has $417,000 in capital fund that you could designate some more of that for EDC incentives if you chose to do that. The $25,000, you're absolutely correct. That is just simply a number that the board decided a few years back that it could afford to transfer every year on a recurring basis to accumulate. But that, you were very right, might not be nearly enough if we have a large opportunity.
Just remember, this is the
Yeah.
Economic Development Committee, and I'm looking for economic development in here instead of sustaining ongoing expenses.
there's no disagreement, and there's money, there's a big fund balance there if you want.
Could you give us an example? I mean, like today, we spent $450,000 in this account, and I know you're not gonna know everything offhand, but can you give Wayne an example of what have we spent, because we are limited on what quote-unquote economic incentives we can do, what have we spent that, some of that $450,000?
The most recent expenditure was to relocate the U.S. Concrete headquarters to Euless, and that was the most recent expenditure that was made.
And ballpark on how much
That was 200 or 250, Janina, do you remember off the top of your head? And that was the most recent payment out of that.
And the $25,000 is just to build that back up to where we can do something big
That's
again?
correct.
I understand.
And the
I just don't know that what's going to be in there.
And it might be important to point out too, that as Gary mentioned, the U.S. Development Corporation monies can only be spent for things that bring primary jobs. So within the city budget, there is also money there, and I believe we had put aside $2 million for incentives there, and then there's also a $700,000 contingency there, and that can be used to incent more multi-use or retail, which the EDC money cannot be used for. So in addition to this money, there is money that you would hear in our regular budget session that approaches about $2.7 million that's available to incent more of what you consider to be the shopping, the commercial development.
I just haven't seen a lot of new activity, and I'm wondering.
And Mr. Collins has got an update, I think, in the meeting, so you may see some more of that.
If you'd like to suggest that 25,000 be larger, Mike, if you want to put some of your fund balance over there, well, that's perfect.
I'll wait for Mike's report, but I just want to make, in my mind, this committee is for economic development. And if we're not spending enough money on economic development, it ain't gonna happen. We've got-
I think Mike's report will bring some very pleasant surprises.
I'm sorry?
I think Mike's report will reveal some very pleasant surprises.
And would Mike come back to us if you needed more money?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so that, to me, if you need it, come ask us for it, you don't.
And that's fine.
I guess you just have to kind of separate what you're going to hear from Mike a little bit is primarily retail. And you have to separate the retail incentives and the retail development from the authorized expenditures from this fund. Because this fund is, it sounds good to say it's economic development, but when you get down to what it is used for, the incentive money, it is very tightly restricted by state law to industrial, commercial that develops those primary jobs. So when you hear what Mike has to say, you don't think that really has much anything to do with it.
It sounds like this fund is for stuff that's not really glamorous. know, like the
Yes,
retail.
but it's very meaningful with landlords, because remember and the people.
Well, I mean, the concrete,
US
the
Concrete,
concrete company, I mean,
the,
no, that didn't
Acton
seem all
Brick.
just, I mean, I know it was great, and I'm glad it happened, but that's not a visual, woo.
Yeah, it's, several years ago, we went after a very large, tool manufacturer. It's gonna be those kind of jobs that, we can incent
With this.
with this. The shopping centers, the retail, the office, things like that is gonna be a form of general fund inside of the house. So you really have to segregate your thoughts in that way, as you think about
And the
this.
reason for that is state law mandated on how that, on what you can use those incentive monies for.
I guess one way to look at it, this group, Mike's group and the rest of the budget brings in sales tax dollars. What we try and do here is bring in payroll dollars, where you actually have people that are coming here, earning money in the city, hopefully then spending the money in the city, buying the houses in the city, building
And I have no
the
problem.
infrastructure.
I
That's
have
what
no
the
problem
city is
with
allowed to
that.
do.
I just want to make sure we've got enough money set aside to accommodate that.
And just kind of as a formality here, when you ask, would you suggest more? And so we'll wait to hear Mike's presentation. Mike's presentation is actually after the budget adoption. So if we either need to move to his presentation before you adopt the budget, or if you however you would like to do that procedurally.
Okay, but
That's
if
fine.
you all
I just-
had the need for this, wouldn't you come to us and ask for it?
That's right.
Yes,
And-
which you have not done.
And we can still spend the 417
Why are
in
we
incentives, even though
putting
it's
them on the horse and we don't
we
need
would
them?
not in the incentive category, correct? Or not correct?
We're very comfortable with what is recommended, a sizable fund balance, that if, Boeing should decide at the end of the year they want to come, we're going to be coming back to you and asking you to adopt this and to amend the budget to reflect that. So there's a means as far as by which that can be accomplished, and I sincerely appreciate your thought, because it is a very good thought. It's an
I
outstanding
just want
thought.
to make sure that this committee appropriates enough money to do what needs to be done. And if you don't put it in the budget, it often doesn't get done.
And I appreciate that, because that is what we're here for.
Yes.
Thank you, Wayne. Carol, did you have questions about? I planned that, I'm trying to go.
You want me to go for you?
Probably just my name, that's all. What do you want? Thank you.
Sure.
I have a couple of questions. On the parks, I noticed that it's a pretty big increase for personnel. Are you planning on adding a bunch of personnel, or is that your favorite? I'm just teasing.
I wish we could. In fact, we're down to just a couple of part-timers, which we've normally had a fairly decent crop of part-timers throughout the year. Nobody's interested in working in parks part-time.
So what's the jump, the big jump, because we're showing, let's see, what, 300,000 more?
And the increase comes from what I had mentioned, the transfer of one of the parks field tax from the general fund to get funded out of EDC, as well as
That's where,
as well as 8 months worth of the special events coordinator coming on board, and as well as our full capacity for the aquatic center. The last 2 years has been partial funding each year because we had the summer open for 1 year, we had partially for the indoor open for the next year, and so now we've got the full year for both
so you're not really adding
facilities.
bodies, personnel.
Just that 8
Just that
months.
one? Okay, now, I noticed pretty big increase on the mowing contract, flower bed contract. Is that because you're outsourcing it more?
Not more, but we have been notified by
Okay,
our
well,
home vendor that we can expect a sizable increase when we rebid that, which will be first part of the year. The contract will renew in April, so to whomever might be the vendor that we select, but yeah, that would reflect that increase.
And now they're going across the board and mowing, landscaping everywhere, because now they have to actually give their people insurance. They didn't used to do that.
Okay, I have one more question. The planning consultant, what are we wanting from a planning consultant?
That money is there for, much like what Mr. Morris was talking about a while ago, if there is the opportunity to commit planning dollars to a major project that qualifies, that's what that is for. It would not be a shopping center project, it would be a commercial project, industrial type project that would allow us to, with the authorization.
So is this planning consultant going to go out and find you something?
No,
Because
this
you're not-
would be to do a specific development if one were to come up. And you look at that as additional incentive dollars, but it would be incentive on the front end for the planning of a particular project. There is no particular project in mind as we sit here right now.
Okay. Few more
And that's
questions.
carry over existing dollars.
Art, what, have we got plans in the
The,
basket for arts?
as
I know
you're
that-
probably well aware, there was 2 art pieces provided in the last year, both of them at the Family Life Center.
They're not in this budget though, are they?
No, this is the.
Yeah.
is
Yeah, I read
two-
about that.
What is the percentage?
2%.
2% of the EDC sales tax, Development Corporation sales tax that is committed towards art, and has been for years, and that is just accumulated until the project brought forward. And they're
And we currently have no specific.
Okay,
art
that was my
projects
question.
planned.
We have $197,000 there. Do we have any current plans? No current plans?
Not this time, no.
Okay, I have a couple more questions. This recommended capital expenditure, the bus and the bus driver, as I was reading about that, it's saying to take people to some of our facilities.
Yeah,
I didn't totally understand. what-
Our South Eula School is currently shut down because of structural failure. Probably will not be reopened. Like there's funds in there, the $75,000 is to shut that down entirely, to demo it and add a shade structure or something down there. The thought is on this, that because that's a neighborhood school, that we would offer children down there under certain circumstances, and Ray's still got to work out the criteria for that, that we would transport them to the aquatic center and back. Additionally, it would be utilized, that's only for a small portion of the year, that's like 2.5 months a year. The other part is we are running the wheels off our current senior bus, and so this would allow for some additional capacity.
So you would turn around and use that for senior citizens?
Pardon?
You would use that bus driver for senior citizen
Yeah,
activities?
this would, just, the thought initially was on the swimming pools in the summer, but it would also be used for seniors, or for the summer camp, or whatever they have. You just look at it as recreation, transportation.
Okay. I assume liability is taken care of by transporting kids and whatever?
Yeah, well, and that's, Ray and I had a discussion on that last week, on exactly how that is done, and it's not totally ironed out right now. It is, somehow or another, we've got to make sure that they're picked up from the responsible adult, and they're dropped off to the responsible adult. We don't have any missing
So
children.
legal liability.
Dropped off.
You did-
We already transport a lot of kids, but it's primarily when they bring them to us and they go to camp. So there's a lot of details we worked out now.
One last thing, this facility rental payment, who are we renting this from? Is it-
That's,
Who owns
there's
the
a,
Dr. Pepper Center?
pardon?
Who owns the Dr. Pepper Center?
The city owns the Dr. Pepper Star Center and it's leased to the Dallas Stars.
Okay, so why have we got to rent it?
And, pardon me?
Why have we got a-
Their rental agreement covers the entirety of it.
Uh-huh.
There's an item on the council agenda for tomorrow night to reduce their rent by a like amount and then extend it so that over the period of the life of that, which goes through 2025.
There's currently 11 years remaining, and it'll extend it by 5 years.
Okay, so they rent it from us, and what we're wanting to do with this.
We're gonna rent.
Rent some back.
We're gonna rent a portion of it back, and we will run through a contractor, the concessions and the pro shop, and then it'll allow some additional programming space within there. So that's what that is. And then entirety of that 215,000, 215,000.
Yeah.
Will be recouped on the extension for 5 years on the back end of that, agreement. Right now, we're around 2025.
Well, I knew we owned it, but I didn't even think about us renting it to the under.
They built it, we bought it,
Renting
we
something
rented
we
it.
already own. Okay. My last one. Refurbishing the building at 1100 West Parkway. Is that the old fire station?
That's the old fire station
What
that does
why-
not-
what are we refurbishing it for?
Well, that is money that has been in there. We continue to look for a sales tax producing tenant. The Development Corporation
So
owns that.
refurbishing it, hoping to pick up a tenant.
Yeah, that's new carpet, new paint,
Oh,
we're trying to do, and that's a carryover from.
The reason, yeah, we wouldn't spend that necessarily until we knew what the new tenant might require, and so that money's there in case we can find a tenant. But so
Okay.
far, we haven't done it because we don't have a tenant ready.
And that was my next question. Do we have a prospective tenant?
No, and that, I wish we would, but that's a good example of where, going back to Wayne's question, where there could be incentives to, if you could produce some primary jobs there, that in addition to that, produce sales tax. It would not be a retail user, but ready-made tractor would be the poster children for that.
Would we consider selling it?
Pardon?
Would we consider selling it?
That is a possibility. The other thing that we are looking at after striking out thus far on a tenant, we could rent it any day of the week, I think. It's the specific nature of the tenant that we'd like to have. But the other thing that we're looking at is a business incubator that where you would allow businesses to go in there for reduced rent and have pool secretarial service, so the startup businesses could utilize that. There's a Chamber of Commerce project that's going to get kicked off, is that this year? With the school district, and that is a young entrepreneurs program that is in lots of places right now, most recently in Grapevine, where kiddos can start their own businesses, and some of them have been rather successful. And so we're looking at the possibility of working with the Chamber and School District again, to create jobs for not only kiddos, but their businesses, and if there was reduced rent, or perhaps some cases no rent, the payback for that would be if once their business develops to the point they can move out of the incubator, they have to locate a US. So that's kind of early stage.
That's a hope. That's all my questions. And, well, we appreciate the questions.
Good question.
Very good questions. Does anybody else have any other questions?
Well, a little bit more back on the bus.
Okay.
What kind of passenger bus is it, or have you just
If
designated that?
are you familiar at all with the current senior bus, it would be basically that. It's an 18-passenger bus. It's very similar to what rental car facilities or hotel
Okay.
shuttle
A little
buses
semi
are.
van.
Yeah, not the big coach
Yeah,
buses,
yeah.
but it's more than a van because it's got wheelchair capability. Is there a name for that kind of?
They look like a coach.
Yeah, it's not a van where you got to crawl over the
Well, you've
seats.
been on one.
Well, I was gonna say, are you gonna keep that one? Because there is, sometimes need for more senior buses.
Oh, there is.
You know, they have to cut off, like if you have a trip or something, they have to cut off.
We have vans, pure 18-passenger vans available, but the seniors have trouble. I have trouble myself climbing over those seats. So this is just a walk-in bus where you walk up the steps and down the aisle. Not as big as a school bus, but.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that, yeah, that would be.
Actually, the school bus is a good example. The shorter, the smaller school buses, like they use for special needs kiddos, it's kind of like that.
I'm also like some, kind of skeptical of this thing about moving kids.
We're trying to come up with a solution because we really don't want to shut off all the kids in South Euless, and it just is not realistic to try and rehab that pool. It's beyond hope.
How much would it cost to just do whatever you have to do to do
Do
it?
we not have that water thing down there?
Yes.
Okay.
It's like
That's in
that.
South US.
That's in South,
Yeah,
that's what
so
we're talking
that's-
about.
Well, no, I thought we were talking about Wilshire.
No, South Euless.
Wilshire is in danger of
Yeah.
failure itself, but both of those are like 70s, early 70s.
1960, 1970, yes, sir.
and somewhere
Yeah, it was, I mean, Wilshire's old.
yeah, and so,
is it used very much?
well, it's open this year.
I know, but-
But it does not have this real high attendance. And it's beginning to have structural, Wilshire beginning to have structural issues. It won't last long, but I don't know that there's gonna be many kids ride this. It's an effort to make it available. If there's no kids ride it, honestly, we need it for the seniors anyway.
Yeah,
So you're hitting on exactly the issue there.
well, I can just see, this is just, I can see the city of Euless.
Well, I mean, you could
In the
pick up and
headlines,
drop off
yeah.
at the old pool location. But you've got the problem is you're dropping them off and there's nobody there. It's one thing if parents let the kids go to the pool and then figure out their way back. But if you're actually taking them and dropping them off, that's what Greg's got to figure out, the liability of.
And see if it can be figured out.
I started saying, be careful, don't open up a can of worms.
Yeah.
But in case it can be figured out, we want to have the option to be able to do that.
Well, we need it for the seniors anyway.
And you can rest assured that our attorney
Okay.
will sign off on all of those.
Well, you just see all this stuff,
Yeah, you do.
what's,
We're all around public bus service.
if people just look for things.
Absolutely, absolutely. Any other questions?
If I may?
Since we are in a
Public
public
hearing?
hearing, yes. I'll ask if there are any pro comments.
Okay. Is that what you're asking now?
Yes.
Well, I have questions more than anything else. So. I was just, the personnel line, does that include salary and benefits? I know some of the budgets break them out separately, salary and then benefits.
Yes, that's
And this
it.
one is a combined total of the two. Who takes the salary cut? I see it goes from 151,000 down to 146,000. That's kind of unusual. Is that a particular person or is that somebody on? That's down on the economic development.
That can simply be a change in insurance elections, depending on who, we budget that based on.
Yeah, that's about
current
5,000.
personnel assigned, and if
Okay.
someone, previously had some different insurance election.
Is there a particular person that is assigned to that line? It's one person,
Well,
right?
it's, the personnel counts are, I think, in the 4 years.
That's on the back, but I didn't know.
And so it can be that, or it can just be, if someone left and someone new started back and they're starting at a lower salary, something of that nature. This particular one, I don't.
So
know
it's a
that.
generic position.
No, it's a position that is assigned to it. It's not a generic position.
There is a person assigned to that
Yes.
position. And what are their duties, I guess, is the
The
question.
positions covered by this is part of half of the Director of Planning and Development, as well as half of the building official.
Okay, so it's actually half of two slots. Okay, adds up to one. Okay, I was just kind of curious about that. The debt service is nearly $1 million. Is what debt items are that? Is that the?
That is detailed in the full operating budget in tab 6. And that is the bonds that were for the library. It's the bonds for the Parks at Texas Star. And I'm trying to remember, that's the two primary ones. I think that's it. And that's the one we've talked about, that the drop-off is coming in 2016. The $700,000, that's when one of those bond issues pays off. But if you look in tab 6 of the city's budget book, you will see that, all the details on that debt schedule, and you'll see the drop-off in the payment.
Now, that's the other thing. I did look at the preliminary budget thing, and these numbers don't quite align up with the EDC. I imagine you'll change that after this gets approved, or what? The EDC,
Are you talking
sales
about the
tax,
city's budget?
the preliminary budget, yeah.
In the preliminary budget that the council received?
Well, that's online, the one
Yes,
for
there were
this
a
coming
couple
year.
adjustments during the budget work session, but we will have a supplemental coming out for the budget book. It
Okay.
includes those changes.
Because it shows a little different totals and all that stuff. I just assumed it was an update, but that'll be reflected in the other.
There's a supplement coming to the preliminary budget book, and that was based on comments at the work session that we incorporated into the final presentation for the city's budget.
Okay. Well, I'll speak out for the budget then. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any no comments? close the public hearing and ask what is your pleasure
Did y'all want to hear Mike's
before we vote.
presentation before we vote? So in case you want to add something to that he said, or I just want to make it available to you. I don't care either way, but if you want to hear that, we can certainly move that forward.
The 417,000 will be available throughout the year to be itemized into that.
It's equal to the budget.
Do the budget
It's
amendment.
fund balance. Yeah,
So if
it's
we were
not
to
designated.
take funds and place it in there now, we're just kind of locking that up without.
Is that correct?
It's almost,
We actually have more flexibility
yeah.
not putting it in there
To amend the
than
budget.
locking it in there. Although, if we locked it in there, we could still do a budget amendment and take it back out.
You've
Either.
got
Either
full
way.
flexibility,
Yeah.
but I think you've got a really good point. I like it, but you got flexibility either way. Right.
You can move it in and out.
Pardon?
You can move it in and out. The debt service fund is one that's not.
That one is just enough to pay the debt, and we have to do that.
And you have to, yes.
The others, you have flexibility to amend it at each election.
We'll do it all over the agenda.
Madam Chairman, I would move approval.
Thank you, Mr. Martins.
I'll second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, the budget has been approved. We'll go on to item number 5, consider approval of an amendment to the fiscal year 2013 and 2014 operating budget.
Well, okay, item 4 was the budget period. Kim, in light of how that was done, we need to go through the amendment.
I would say yes.
Okay. So if you take item 5, would just be the amendment. You have a motion to approve the budget. Yeah, so we already caught that. Because you did it, but we need to approve the amendment to the fiscal year 2013 and 2014. Remember, that is adding to the rebates because of the additional sales tax. That's it. You'd like to do that every year.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the amendment to the fiscal year 2013-2014 operating budget to provide for economic development in the amount of $1,123,794.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The amendment motion passes. Okay.
Well, let's go ahead and, let's start with, Parks and Community Services. There's some great things going on there. And we'll line that out, and then Sherry can pick up that library, and then we'll tell you the best part to last, because I hope what you're gonna see when we get through here is there's some great things going on here. Mr. McDonald.
Yes, sir. Well, as it relates to the projects that were in your packet, I'll go back a little bit and just review some of these from this current fiscal year. The Heritage Park painting project has been complete. The Lights of the Village's Bear Creek Dog Park has been complete. The pickleball court is here, so that one you can take off. The decorative light fixture replacement in McCormick Park, the lights are actually here. We've just not coordinated with facilities maintenance yet to have those installed. That's going to be a fairly big project. So in addition to that, we're also going to do some work on the gazebo, so we're trying to plan both of those at the same time so that it doesn't disrupt the patrons at that particular park more than we have to. So, and then moving on to just some general things going on in our department. Some numbers from the Family Life Center. We've talked about that quite a bit today. So far this year on the recreation side, we've had 39,000 visitors. In the fitness center, we've had 53,000 visitors. And on the senior center side, we've had over 25,000 visitors. So the numbers continue to be strong in all of those areas. Memberships are going well. The indoor pool, first year in operation so far, we've had just over 7,300 visits, just over 1,400 of those being in July. And at the outdoor pool, we have 33,630 visits so far through July. And 15,000, just over 15,000 of those being in the month of July. So you can see that was a very busy month for us.
Ray, do we know how that matched up with the first July or last July?
Yes, sir. Interestingly enough, we are almost exactly 2,000 visits short of where we were this time last year. We've had more closures this year than we had last year. And we feel fairly confident that the numbers, in fact, July's numbers were more than last July. But June last year beat June this year. So we're hoping that August this year runs a close race and that we can finish neck and neck, if not surpass where we were last year. But all in all, revenue, numbers-wise, everything, we're neck and neck with where we were last year. Which is a great sign because, normally the second year you tend to tail off quite a bit from the newness of the first year, but still going strong over there. We're proud of that. And just to update you on a project that we will hopefully start soon. We have been given official word, but a project called the Green Ribbon Grant from TxDOT. Mr. Barker and I have worked on with a consultant that we've done some other work with, and make a long story short, we've been granted $112,000 to do a landscaping project at the intersection of Bear Creek Parkway and basically the service road to 183 on our side of the bridge. It would include I don't have an aerial, I didn't know if we would have that ability tonight, but it would include the loops on either side of Bear Creek Parkway and the long median just about up to our sign. If you've noticed the EULA sign, the rock sign that's in the median there, it would include just before that. So what we're excited about is with the development that's going on over there, this would be a showcase entry from that side of our city. We have the reclaim water project that we will be able to bring irrigation over to. We're working on a design, smartscape designs with plants, and it would include some trees and native grasses and some shrubs. So we're excited about that opportunity to be able to really do something special over there. The development that's going in is fantastic. Mike and his group done a great job, and the look that ULIS wants, so we want to provide that with the landscaping there at the entry. So we'll probably have more updates for you at the next meeting, and hopefully we'll have a design to show you as well.
That's what we find, no local match.
No local match, no sir, that is 100% TxDOT money. So we also applied for, and we're not granted, but there still might be a shot on the back end of it to do another project along the proposed trail from Creekwood through Glade Parks that we've talked to you all about before. They say that if there are projects that either don't spend all the money that they've been awarded or that weren't ready when the money is being awarded, that on the back end, whatever's left over, some of the smaller projects, and that was a much smaller project in the low 20,000 range. So might be a shot at that one in a few months. We may find out. So keep you posted.
We are ready.
We are too. We're excited about that.
Any questions for Ray on anything park related? Ms. Sherry, you run a little building across the road.
Thank you very much. Just an update on our fiscal year 14 projects that were EDC funded. Our display units are purchased and in building and helping us market our collection and provide an interesting and exciting environment over in the library. Our upgrade to the meeting room AV system, the equipment's been ordered and it should be installed within the next few weeks. And this will allow us to expand some of the program offerings that we're able to do over in the meeting room over what we have currently. As was mentioned before, the security camera funds are being rolled over so that we can participate in a citywide security camera system that's being designed. And the wallpaper is being replaced even as we speak right now in the lobby. The scaffolding is up and it's probably going to take about a week to finish that. And looking at fiscal year 15, the library document station that was mentioned is going to be a much better experience for our patrons in terms of being able to go to one place and either make a copy, scan, fax, email, or save to USB, whatever document they're working on. Of course, providing computer services is a big component of what we do, also contributing to people's ability to get jobs, do their resumes, and contribute to our local economy. And we're also going to see an increase in our materials budget that will allow us to purchase more of our ebooks, which we began in September, have been extremely popular. Right now, we have 1,270 ebook titles that we own. And as an example, for July, we circulated 798. So we continue to devote resources to that and look forward as we all know, print is going to slowly back off, and we're going to be moving more to the digital side of providing information. And we've had a very busy and successful summer. Of course, summer is the time when libraries focus on our summer reading club, where we help kids and adults keep that reading up during the time that they're away from school. We had 1,445 folks register for our summer reading club using our new online registration process, which we got a lot of good feedback on. People were very appreciative of the fact that we moved from a completely paper log-based system to being able to do it online. And we really beefed up our programs and events this summer. We had, between the end of May and the beginning of August, we had 109 events and programs with an attendance of 5,573. And that was everything from our Storypalooza, story times we offered, to some of the bigger events like the Yo-Yo Lady and the Juggler and all that stuff too. So very proud of the staff. They really outdid themselves over the summer. We had particular success with our science-based events. Parents are just clamoring for more science and STEM-based education opportunities, so we're going to carry that over through into the fall. And as we ramp up again with our weekly elementary and teenage programs every week, we're going to incorporate a lot of that kind of stuff. We're looking at robots, we're looking at some really cool stuff like that. And we're also gearing up and offering an expanded array of events and programs for adults this fall. You'll see computer classes, crafting classes. We're going to do a financial literacy series called Money Smart. And of course, continue on with our music events that are extremely popular. So, any questions?
I have, of course, I'm going to do you have enough computers to accommodate what needs to be accommodated for the public? All I see in there is that one circular table. And it's always full, and people are standing around waiting in line.
I think we're in a good spot right now where we're at the point where we don't have very many people waiting in line anymore. I think we've reached the peak in terms of needing to provide actual PCs for folks. As more and more people are bringing their own devices into the library, I think we're going to see a shift from needing to provide those computers to needing to provide the Wi-Fi service. So I think we're in a good spot. So.
We continue to add.
That's where we're going.
Yeah, that's,
And we better get there.
one of the things that we've identified in our 5-year budget is the need to do a pretty good refurbishment or remodel of that library in the next few years. And I think it's scheduled for Loretta, I whispered to Loretta, I don't remember which year it was, she said thanks to 2019. We were looking in the last week or two at a strategic plan some of y'all may have been involved in. It was in the early 90s. It was really the proposal to build a library. There were several statements in there about it lasting for 20 years. Well, we're just nearly there. What year was it?
96. So
96. So yeah, we're coming up on 20 years. And you just stop and think about, and Wayne's exactly right, where we're headed and where we've been. In 96, I don't know if there was a single
Library
public
will not be like the
computer.
library.
Pardon?
The library will not be like the library we grew up.
Oh, no.
No.
It's changing every day, and we need to be abreast of all those things. I'm sure you are. I just want to make sure that we allocate appropriate funds with it to assist with that. Because it's been just a gigantic success. In my view.
And the challenge as Jerry goes through that is to kind of project what's next is, because it is such a drastic change.
That's very true.
20 years.
I got a question, your enrollment for the summer reading program, was that about what you had last year?
It was very close, and I was watching it pretty carefully. I wasn't sure how people would react to being almost forced to do it online now. And we had, one or two that just didn't want to do the computer, and we wouldn't do it for them, but it stayed pretty steady.
Well, I think you do a tremendous job.
Sherry, we mentioned, so pleased with Sherry. Sherry is a good library person and a good lady. We could not ask for better library administration. And arguably,
I have a
you
great
may have
staff.
weak links, but I don't know where to be.
I have a great staff, and we continue to focus more on getting outside the building, getting more out in the community, supporting things like making sure we have an employable workforce, making sure that our kids have plenty of early literacy opportunities, just all those things that contribute to a successful community.
Well, I heard that you had a gangbusters crowd the last concert.
We did, yes ma'am. Les Elgart was extremely popular.
I had a meeting, but I guess it was standing room only pretty much.
It was, yeah, it was a great show.
And our concert this Thursday,
Well, Kim told me I was wrong. It's next Thursday.
next Thursday, at the Park Texas Star, at the pavilion.
The golf course.
I'm sorry, Texas Star Golf Course, yeah. What's the name of it?
Rebate.
Bring back up.
Yeah, supposed to be good. Get a chance to go have dinner at Texas Star and then go out there to the pavilion, listen to, it's not country western music, you said it's just country music.
Oh,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm just curious, that brought that up. How is how are the revenues at Texas Star, the restaurant with the golf course closed?
Well, Megan, who's the conference center manager, told me the other day that is discovering that is a conference center and a restaurant that happens to have a golf course attached to it. We used to think if a golf course doesn't have a conference center because they're doing really well. They're doing better than we expected during the closure of the golf course. And we took council on a little tour the other day of the golf course improvements. And that is going remarkably well.
I drove through the front nine day before yesterday, and, because it's basically the front nine is complete, it's gonna be amazing. Yeah.
It looks like a magazine layout
Yeah,
out there right
it
now.
truly does.
But I think that, well, I know that's been a huge pleasant surprise for us, is how well that restaurant
Yeah, because I'm looking.
performed. Because we thought with the absence of the golfers, it would really struggle. And it struggled, but not, it's doing better than expected, and the conference center continues to do quite well.
I went in one Tuesday a couple of weeks ago for lunch, and I figured it wasn't be crowded. Ravens Grill was packed. They didn't know how long the wait would be.
Oh.
I mean, it was that full. Every parking place was gone. I mean, it was the only reason I got to take was Bobby Bakers to sit with us. We just ordered.
I received Linda's status report today for July, and she said Ravens Grill not only achieved their target goal, but was over. So,
Good.
and Conference Center was busier than they expected.
How much of the range is being used, the whole practice area. Every time I go out there, there's 8 to 10 people out there on the range, which is, when the course was open, we didn't have 8 to 10 people on there on a regular basis at the range.
They're having withdrawal.
Yeah.
You don't preview of it, go out there and they'll give you a and we got carpet coming in the not too distant future inside.
In that area that's surrounded. Is that what you're talking about?
No, you're talking about out.
Garden room.
Garden room now.
Yeah.
It's much larger.
Yeah, it's not really large.
No.
They've got some Saturday afternoon things on the
How
wall.
quickly? I mean, when do they get the sample?
Oh, it's
Right.
Because when we got there.
No, that's been 2 or 3 years ago.
You just like to pick on me, don't you?
Yes.
Yes.
I do.
That's all right. Hey, I got a good Texas Star story, I'll tell you after.
Okay.
Well, when we were out there, it was with a pretty big group, and there was more comments. Of course, we're all,
Well, we heard the complaint that your group was really loud.
Our Sunday school class at church, we go there occasionally, and it's a seniors, we go inside, because that is a function in large part of it.
We have to talk louder.
and then when somebody else at the other table, when the Baptists are talking loud, you cannot hear.
Well, Mr. Collins,
I personally think the out thing is better than it used to be.
It is
Yeah,
better.
it is.
But
But
it is
I'm not as old as Carl, so.
it's pretty much.
We've got stuff prepared to discuss with you, give you an overview of all the stuff that's going on at Glade Parks. But before I get into that, on the economic development activity associated with manufacturing, the primary job creation, if you've been in economic development 15, 20 years ago, and you were in a suburban community, there was still growth and expansion occurring with traditional manufacturing companies. That if you were, again, a suburban community like us on the outer ring of the city of Fort Worth or whatever, you typically have an industrial development corporation that had land. You'd have some incentives available, not only to give that land away, but to help with utilities being expanded, etc. And that really was the bread and butter, that you would take an established manufacturing company from a different location and plop them into your community. And it was not real common for them to shop a bunch of communities because they still wanted to stay in the area. Their workforce lived there. So for them to make a move, within 10, 15 miles was not that big a deal. We don't get that these days. That type of growth of a small manufacturing company that's in an existing location, that's in 50, 60,000 square foot space, that has a couple hundred employees, we just don't get those. I don't know. We talk among the economic development folks throughout Northeast Tarrant County, and I've still got folks that I keep in contact with in Collin County and Dallas County and Garland and Wiley, and then you get north of Frisco into the Anna Melissa area. You don't see that type of growth anymore. What kind of growth you do see is everybody's so sophisticated. When we get prospects, and I use that term very, very liberally, when these manufacturers want to come in and do a site selection, they're working either through the regional chambers of commerce through Fort Worth or Dallas. They're working directly through Encore, and then the big boys are working directly through the governor's office. And those are the prospects that you would get that are looking for 50 to 100 acres, and you've got an existing 250,000 square foot facility that can be occupied immediately with land available for them to double their expansion, double their size within 3 to 5 years. And then you start looking at the sophistication of the list of incentives that you've got to offer. You begin at the federal level through tax credits and employment tax credits through the governor's office down to the local government level, and what partnerships you have with the community colleges for workforce grants. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, if we had 100 acres with an existing 250,000 square foot facility that was vacant, then you could get at the table to talk about the solar powered, the manufacturer of solar powered panels or whatever. But the bread and butter manufacturers that you used to see as prospects 10, 15 years, 20 years ago, you don't. But what we do have is some businesses that have been here 25, 30 years. I'm thinking about Fine Line Productions is a company that y'all might not even be familiar with that's on Regal. They've been here for 35, 40 years. They are in a current facility of about 30, 35,000 square feet. The guy owns it. He wants to turn it over to his sons, when they get out of college to operate, they manufacture aftermarket bumpers and toolboxes and side view mirrors for trucks, okay? They want to expand by about 25,000 square feet. They're not asking for anything. They're not asking for anything. We had a business come in 3 years ago into the old Warren Tech building on West Park. They make a bunch of materials that are used in highway construction. They manufacture guard railing. They manufacture light poles. Raw materials are brought in, and they do whatever it is that they do to stamp and reform it and cut and torch it and do whatever it is inside a facility that is, I think it's 85,000 square feet is the primary structure. Well, they came in and I think they started out with 115, 120 jobs. They're now up to about 180 jobs. They didn't ask for anything. They didn't ask for a dime. They just came in, needed our assistance to move in there because there were some modifications that were needing to be made. They didn't ask for a nickel. Quickway Stamp on Highway 10 has been here for years. It's not a glamorous business, whatever, but for them to expand by 20,000 square feet, which is what they're going to do, it's with their own money. There's no board of directors in New York that they're going to ask permission. You know, they own the business. Actually, it's owned out of California, but the same family operates 2 facilities. So what growth we are seeing, and it's kind of fun and exciting. There's about 7 or 8 of those that we're dealing with locally that are expanding. A little bit larger companies like a Ferguson's, that is a plumbing supply, both wholesale and retail. They expanded their outdoor storage area, I don't know, 25, 30,000 square feet. Last year, they've now come in with an expansion of the office portion of that they're going to expand, I think, by 35,000 square feet. So we're seeing some growth, certainly not in the manufacturing sector or assembly, what we would have seen as a typical community 15, 20 years ago, but we've got some activity occurring. The difference is they're not asking for anything.
Mike, are all these expansions in the same footprint, or not footprint, but the same land area?
It is in the same, and it's a great question. Yeah, the land that they currently own, they just have some excess property that they're able to do that. You know, you talk with a Quickway Stamp, even a company like that, the sophistication of CAD, the efficiencies through some of the increase in technology with robotics and stuff that they use in the stamping process, they expand, but it doesn't necessarily translate into that many additional jobs because of the efficiencies of production methods and the new technology that they've got to introduce in order to remain competitive and provide the component parts to the Lockheeds of the world.
Well, please don't misunderstand. I'm not complaining about your work because I think you do a tremendous job.
Oh, I wouldn't get it.
I just be concerned that you have enough funds available, and I think you do, to do what you need to do to get through what you need to get through.
Well, Mr. McCamey's example of that tool manufacturer was great. They don't come around very often. It came down to 2 communities. We were very, very competitive with our offer, and at the end of the day, where they ended up locating that community just basically opened up the checkbook. It just wasn't a good business decision at that point. But those types of large manufacturers on 50 acres, 1.5 million square feet, 500, 600 jobs, I think it was going to be, those just don't come around very often at all.
When they do, they go out to those buildings out like on the airport.
Yeah, they've got spec buildings that are just waiting and very, very aggressive with their incentives to go. So, Glade Parks development. We have seen a lot of activity that's occurring out there, and what I wanted to do was start out with the construction activity with the road network that is out there. Rio Grande is the main spine road that goes from Chiefs Barber north and connects in with Glade Road. You've seen substantial completion of that roadway. There's still work to be done on the bridge. I visited with the Public Works Director before this meeting, and he tells us that the Rio Grande should be substantially completed and with an expectation that it could open at the end of September or early October. Brazos is the road, and I am sorry, I'm trying to get my mouse to work, and it's obviously operator. Thank you. On Brazos, thank you very much, Mr. Parker. A contract was recently awarded for the construction of that street, and that should be completed by the end of December, which is very, very good news, because where Chris has got the cursor there is the location of where the Dave & Buster's, their 50,000 square foot entertainment facility, is going to be constructed. We have released the building construction plans for that project, so they've got all the necessary permits from the city necessary for them to begin their construction, which we expect to see some site development work there sometime this month. They had an expectation that they were going to try to get that completed before the end of the year and take advantage of the holiday season, but it's not likely that they're going to get open before Christmas at this stage. But they continue their very, very busy season with all of the sporting events that occur in January that culminates with the Super Bowl and then the National College Football Championship and whatever. So that's not concerning them at all about their schedule. If you look at the top of the screen in the yellow, we've talked about the K-Hoff Manian subdivision. They've got their road network in. They will begin development of their model homes this month with an expectation that in 2.5 months, they would have model homes available and ready to show. Those homes should start in the upper 300s, low 400s is what they are telling us today. That is a 217 lot subdivision. So you'll continue to see more and more activity there. Of course, the urban loft development that we've talked to you about multiple times, they have exceeded their occupancy goals there of over 90%. They continue to have very, very strong lease rates that, my gosh, I think it's at $1.55 a foot for their rental, which makes it a very, very strong performing Class A property that really, really has set the bar for that entire 121 corridor.
How do you have the number of apartments or lofts, whatever?
417.
That's 90%?
Yeah, we're 90% leased out. Okay. The city council at their next meeting, which I guess is tomorrow, will be asked to consider approval of a site plan. Will you move to the next slide, please? I believe that that's the site plan for the inline retail. Continue. There we go. The inline retail portion is that northern portion interior to the development that it will consist of about 287,000 square feet of new retail that would include a soft goods, perhaps even some kind of maybe department store of some kind, another type of soft goods would be immediately adjacent as you move from the bottom of the page, moving up, and then you would get, as you get into the shallower retail spaces, inline retail uses that would include cosmetics and footwear and other goods and services that you would expect to find that would be a complement to your Power Center retail lineup. So that would be 287,000 square feet of new retail that they would hope to have under construction this fall. That's the actual site plan that will be presented to the City Council tomorrow night. This was all part of the Glade Parks master planning that went on with an effort that's working very, very well, that can get these folks, once the development comes forward and says, we've got the end users, we can get this site plan considered through P&Z and City Council and construction underway in the quickest possible time so that those spaces can get occupied and folks can start shopping and it can start generating sales tax. So in combination with the Dave & Buster's, that's the 50,000 square feet, here's 287,000 square feet. There is additional activity that you see occurring on the out parcel. The first of at least 3 out parcel buildings that will contain between 10 and 12,000 square feet is under construction, well under construction, and should be completed, or I should say should be turned over to Potbelly, Monarch Deli, Supercuts, and AT&T
That's what
to
you're
complete.
constructing right now?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Those spaces
You
are
can't
being...
get a sandwich in Monarch, but
No, you cannot. But they'll floss it out of your teeth.
Absolutely. There's all some connections there between these users. But what the developer will do is construct the outer shell, put all the exterior finish out, do a little bit of stuff inside, and then turn it over to the end user's contractor to complete the interior finish out. So this was around 9,000, 8,700 square feet, something like that. 2 additional out parcel buildings have been approved through site plan that will contain each, depending on how they subdivide the interior, 4 to 6 new businesses per building. So all told, you know, you're looking at about 350, 360,000 square feet before we even get into the middle section that still has the potential for the movie theater, still will have the potential for at least 6 other pad sites for restaurants in that area. All told, you know, we're still looking at, you know, that 430,000 square feet of retail space as part of that phase 1 of the Glade Parks commercial development.
And these people are already on top.
Absolutely, absolutely. And, you know, the market's very, very good right now for end users, but it's also very, very dynamic. There's a lot of competition going. These developers that are negotiating to get end users at Glade Parks are negotiating with every other power center under development or that's existing that's got vacant space. So it's very competitive terms that these developers have to agree to for these folks to come in, either in lease rates or tenant finish out or any number of things that affect their bottom line. But this is really, I know we've been saying this for many, many years, that is really, really getting some strong momentum.
And it's every bit, you